welcome to the last assembly of this half term. Summer term is usually very short, obviously, and things go by very quickly, but it's just lovely being back in school, and it's so fantastic. Both Mr. Tidy and I and your tutors just love the fact that you're back in school, and it's great to hear you guys sort of running around and enjoying your lessons and making the most of all that the school has to offer.
Today I'd like to look at a topic that involves value and worth. What's the most valuable thing you own? What's the most valuable item you've seen close up? For me, the answers are my house and probably some expensive painting in a gallery that I visited somewhere at some point in my life. These items clearly have value, certainly in monetary terms. I don't think anyone would dispute that. A friend of mine, who's an economist and also a former business partner of mine, once said, "Something only has the value that others are willing to attribute to it." In other words, these things are worth what they are because someone is willing to pay that price for it. My house is insured in case of some fire or some flooding, etc. And actually the cost of rebuilding the structure is far less than the price of the property itself. The market dictates the value and says it's worth more. So there are outside forces that are determining the value of the home I'm living in. Of course, I can add value by renovating and modernizing the property, and the land the property is on probably has more value than the building too, but they're not as significant as the impact of forces that are mostly outside of my control. The value of something is also often about perception, the viewpoints of others, and these views can carry a lot of power and a lot of influence. I still find it amazing how the way that people see something can have such a big impact on reality, on the world we live in, and how we experience this world. The next video, the video you're about to watch, is very much about people's perceptions.
In working out how you could relaunch Shreddies, he came up with this.
Shreddies is supposed to be square.
Have any of these diamond shapes got a...
New Diamond Shreddies cereal. Same 100% whole grain wheat in a delicious diamond shape.
No! I'm not sure this is the most perfect example of intangible value creation. All it requires is photons, neurons, and a great idea to create this thing. And I have to say, it's a work of genius, but naturally you can't do this kind of thing without a little bit of market research.
So Shreddies is actually introducing a new product, which is something very exciting for them. So they're introducing new Diamond Shreddies. Isn't it interesting? So I just want you to look at the box there. So I just want to get your first impressions when you see that, and you see the Diamond Shreddy box there.
Are they square? I'm a little bit confused. They look like squares to me.
It's all in the appearance, but it's kind of like thinking about a 6 or a 9, like a 6. If you flip it over, it looks like a 9, but a 6 is very different from a 9. And never been a W, exactly.
Actually, when you don't see, like when I sat there, you just look like you turn around, but when you see like that, it's more interesting looking.
Just try both of them. Get a square one there first.
First one.
The first one.
Now, naturally, actually, debate raged. There were conservative elements in Canada, unsurprisingly, who actually resented this intrusion. So eventually the manufacturers actually arrived at a compromise, which was the combo pack. Now, if you think it's funny, bear in mind there's an organization called the American Institute of Wine Economics, which actually does extensive research into perception of things and discovers that except for among perhaps 5 or 10% of the most knowledgeable people, there is no correlation between quality and enjoyment in wine, except when you tell the people how expensive it is, in which case they tend to enjoy the more expensive stuff more. So drink your wine blind in future. But this is both hysterically funny, but I think an important philosophical point, which is going forward, we need more of this kind of value, We need actually to spend more time appreciating what already exists and less time agonizing over what else we can do.
I really like his final point. We should try and spend more time appreciating what we already have and less time stressing about what we can still do. Appreciate the value of what you already have and what you already are, and place less of an emphasis on agonizing over what else or what next. I also love the stories of buried treasures that are uncovered. I'll never forget the story of a couple in the USA, I watched this on the television, whose ice cream business, which they'd owned for years, was sadly on the brink of bankruptcy. To make matters far worse, a hurricane ripped through the area, almost completely devastating their shop. They arrived the following morning to almost complete and utter devastation. While they were sifting through the rubble and some of the building which was still standing, they discovered a section of the building which had been exposed by the storm, which they'd never seen before. When they managed to pry open the panelling, they found numerous very dusty sealed boxes, which were remarkably well preserved. The couple were obviously curious and were astonished when they opened the first box. Inside were rare comic books in pristine condition. Every box contained more of these comics, and the average price tag for each comic turned out to be in the tens of thousands of dollars each. An incredible and obviously life-changing discovery. Their shop wasn't a worthless pile of rubble, it contained things of incredible value. They were able to rebuild the shop, continue their business. And without the storm, their treasure may never have been revealed. These stories really make me want to dig up my garden or pull up my floorboards at home in search of a possible hidden treasure of immense value. I'll resist that temptation, at least for now. A few years ago, some scientists worked out the value of a human body. Apparently, if we took out all of our organs and sold them, we would have a price tag of over £35 million. There are also other ways to calculate the value of a person. Other scientists have worked out the value of a human body based not on the resale value of organs, but on the value of each chemical component, broken down into its lowest form. The biggest part of your body is water. You've also got potassium and iron, calcium, tin, and even gold, but only trace amounts, so it's not very worth that much at all. The scientists calculated if we add together the value of each element, we get a price tag of just, well, £122. Not much at all. How much do you think you're worth? Some of us find it fairly easy to appreciate our value, whereas others find it quite difficult. How much would you pay for a tub of hair? Well, how much would you pay for a tub that belonged to Justin Bieber and Justin Bieber's hair? Well, the amount it sold for on eBay, $25,024. How much would you pay for a hat? Well, what if that hat belonged to Pharrell Williams? It sold on eBay for £26,444. Sticking with the theme of hats, how much would you pay for the hat that Princess Beatrice wore to the wedding of Prince William and Kate Middleton? Well, it sold on eBay for £81,100. Well, these are astonishingly large amounts of money, but someone somewhere thought that the items were worth that much. I believe we're all valuable. However, if we sold a pot of our hair on eBay, pretty confident that people might not be prepared to pay very much for it. Justin Bieber's hair sold for a large sum of money because of who it belonged to and because it had value to the person who bought it. When people are considering selling their house, they get something called a valuation. This is where someone visits the house and evaluates how much they think the house is worth and therefore how much they think it will sell for. Often, different valuers will make different valuations, so the people who own the house have to decide which value they want to follow and listen to. So the question I'd ask you is, who are you listening to about your value and worth? What evaluations are people making about you and your value and your worth? And do you realize that you actually have a choice in the matter about whether you believe an evaluation to be true or false? Understanding our value affects how we let others treat us, and also how we treat ourselves. You are valuable, and you can, to a large extent, decide that value. It is not just about outside forces and other people's viewpoints and opinions. It is not something entirely out of our control. The outside forces and viewpoints and opinions don't always matter, and they certainly don't have to dictate our worth. Have a good week, everyone, and remember, please don't dig up your garden in search of buried treasure. Thank you.